We are online now.
Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghugo Krishna Isala Gana Krishna Kirtana Kala Bhaktana Param Premo Mritamani Veera Veera Jana Priya Priya Karo Nirma Pujitam Vijay Tanna Kripa Bharav Vijay Tanna Kripa Bharav Bhuvi Bhuva Bharav Antarakau Bande Rupa Sanatana Raghugav
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Yeah,
Maharaj.
so I had a little trouble getting on, but we made it. Good morning, Tamal Krishna Das. Good name.
Hare Krishna. Dandava Pranam.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I'm just getting things set up here.
Dharma Lokanam Karinam Tribhuvane Mandam Karo
All right, I think we're ready to get started because we've got a lot to cover.
Maharaj.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay, so we're still reading about all these great saintly people that came to hear the discourses, right?
Yeah, we're reading the purport of
Meda Titi, purport of 1, 19, 9, and 10.
yes, Maharaj.
Meda Titi. So hearing about great devotees has the same spiritual benefit as hearing about Krishna, or sometimes even more. So we like to, especially for us, we should read about Prabhupada, but in our previous acharyas, but Prabhupada, he spent a lot of energy here for this purport to give all these details about all these great saintly people, so we can understand, what something how insignificant we are, because we tend to get puffed up by any little thing we do. So who would like to read first? Somebody
Can you read, Maharaj?
Somebody start reading.
Okay. Continuation. Medatiti, an old sage of yore, an assembly member of the heavenly king Indra Deva. His son was Kanva Muni, who brought up Sakuntala in the forest. He was promoted to the heavenly planet by strictly following the principles of retired life, Vanaprastha. Devala, a great authority like Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. His good name is on the list of authorities mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. When Arjuna acknowledged Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he met Maharaj Yudhishthira after the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he was the elder brother of Damya, the priest of the Pandava family. By the Kshatriyas, he also allowed his daughter to select her own husband in a Swayamvara meeting. And at that ceremony, all the bachelors, sons of the rishis, were invited. According to some, he is not Asita Devala. Bharadwaja, Prabhupada said, read Srimad Bhagavatam 196. I guess we're not going there. Gautama. Gautama was one of the 7 great sages of the universe. Saradwan Gautama was one of his sons. Persons in the Gautama Gotra dynasty today are either his family descendants or in his disciplic succession. The Brahmanas who profess Gautama Gotra are generally family descendants, and the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas who profess Gautama Gotra are all in the line of his disciplic succession. He was the husband of the famous Ahalya, who turned into stone when Indradev, the king of the heaven, molested her. Ahalya was delivered by Lord Ramachandra. Gautama was the grandfather of Kripacharya, one of the heroes of the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Maitreya was a great rishi of Yah. He was the spiritual master of Vidura and a great religious authority. He advised Dhritarashtra to keep good relations with the Pandavas. Duryodhana disagreed and thus was caused by him. He met Vyasadeva and had religious discussions with him.
So Maitreya is a very big player in Srimad Bhagavatam. There's many chapters in his conversations with Vidura, because he was present when Krishna spoke, the last thing he spoke to Uddhava. Maitreya was also present there and heard everything. So then he repeated it to Vidura. Very amazing person. All right.
All right. In the descriptions of Gautama, Prabhupada mentioned here how Indradev molested Ahalya.
Okay, later.
He's saying what?
Prabhupada mentioned here in the story of Gautama, he was mentioning how Ahalya was molested by Indra.
Yeah.
Yeah, my Lord, I was just reflecting. In that story of Ahalya and Indradev, there was a kind of a mutual understanding, and even in modern days, whenever there is a kind of illicit activities between a man and a woman, most of the time the male is blamed. So I wanted to know if there are some spiritual reasons behind this, because here also Srila Prabhupada was referring to that activity as a molested case.
Well, the story, Indra, he took the form of her husband, so she didn't know.
Okay.
But still, according to the strict rules and those kind of culture, of course, she got delivered later by Krishna, so that's a special, that was a benediction. Right?
Yes, Maharaj.
But like now I heard even in Muslim, if a girl gets raped, then the family kills her. They blame her for it. But but anyway, and sometimes these sages, like, even though they're great sages, they become angry. Right? So
Okay, Maharaj, thank you.
yeah, something like that. She should have been able, he must be thinking she should have been able to know that it wasn't him.
Mhm.
But Indra is a lusty, crazy guy, who does things like that. But Indra can get away with it. He suffers, but he doesn't lose his post. Okay, carry on. Is that the end of
Okay.
it?
Yeah, that's the end of it. Text number 11.
Someone else.
Okay, someone else. Tamar Krishna Prabhu, you want to try? Read? Tamar Krishna Prabhu, can you read?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. There were also many other saintly demigods, king and special rulers orders called Arudadaya, a special rank of Rajasis from different dynastic of stages. When they all assembled together to meet the emperor Parasik, he received them properly and bowing his head to the ground. Purport: the system of bowing the head to the ground to show respect to superior is an excellent etiquette which oblige the honored guest deep into the heart. Even the first grade offender is executed simple by this process. And Maharaj Parasik, although honored by all the rishis and kings, welcome all the big men in that humble etiquette in order to be excused from any offenses. Generally, at the last stage of one's life, this humble method is adopted by every sensible man in order to be excused before departure. In this way, Maharaj Parasik employed everyone's good will for going back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Even Srila Prabhupada, some of his godbrothers came to visit him not too long before he left. And he apologized that he might have offended them in his preaching. He said in preaching, sometimes you have to be very strong. And he was in a very humble mood. And they all said, no, you never made any offense. You're great. So we should remember that. But we should also remember that we don't know, we could be leaving the body at any minute. Like Prickett knew that he had a certain time, but nobody else, we don't know. I mean, sometimes we know, somebody's in a certain health condition in the hospital and they get to a certain point where they know for sure they're going to leave any minute. And usually by that time, the consciousness is not very good for most people. They may not be able to think straight. So we should always be in that mood that I could be dying any minute. So please, be humble and bow down to everybody and beg forgiveness. And that's why in the temple in the morning, we say that Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha, that it's supposed to be in the mood of asking forgiveness from all the devotees for any offenses we might make. Okay? Let's remember that. Carry on.
Yeah. Text 12. After all the rishis and others had seated themselves comfortably, the king humble, standing before them with folded hands, told them of his decision to fast unto death. Purport. Although the king had already decided to fast unto death on the bank of Ganges, he humbly expressed his decision to elicit the opinion of the great authorities present there. Any decision, however present there, any decision, however important, should be confirmed by some authorities. That makes the matter perfect. This means that the monarch who ruled the earth in those days were not irresponsible dictators. They scrupulously followed the authoritative decision of the saints and sages in terms of Vedic injunctions. Maharaj Parasik, as a perfect king, followed the principle by consulting the authorities even up to the last days of his life. Hare Krishna.
Okay, setting a very good example for us. Let's carry on.
Okay. The fortunate king said, indeed, we are the most grateful of all the kings who are trained to get favor from the great souls. Generally, you sages consider royalty as refused to be rejected and left in the distant praise. Purport. According to religious principles, stool, urine, wash water, etc., must be left at a long distance. Attached bathroom, urinal, etc., may be very convenient amenities of modern civilization, but they are ordered to be seated at as a distance from residence quarters. That every example is cited herein in relation to the kindly order for those who are progressive, marching back to Godhead. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that to be in intimate touch, the dullest and saints men, or a kindly order is well done suicide for one who desires to go back to Godhead. In other words, the transcendental do not generally associate with men who are too enamored by the external beauty of God's creation. By advanced knowledge in spiritual realization, the transcendentalists know that this beautiful material world is nothing but a shadowing reflection of the reality, the kingdom of God. They are not, therefore, very much captivated by royal opulence or anything like that. But in the case of Maharaj Parasik, the situation was different. Apparently, the king was condemned to death by an inexperienced Brahmana boy, but factually, he was called by the Lord to return to him. Other transcendentalists, the great sages and mystics who assembled together become because of Maharaj Parasik fasting until death, were quite anxious to see him, for he was going back to Godhead. Maharaj Parasik also could understand that the great sages who assembled there were all kinds to his forefathers, the Pandavas, because of their devotional service to the Lord. He therefore felt grateful to the sage for being present there at the last stage of his life. And he felt that it was all due to the greatness of his faith forefathers or grandfathers. He felt proud, therefore, that he happened to be the descendant of such great devotees. Such proud for the devotees of the Lord is certainly not equal to the perfect absence of vanity for material prosperity. The first is reality, whereas the other is false and vain. Hare Krishna.
So that last sentence there, 2 sentences about pride, is very interesting. Salika, you want to comment on that? It's all right to be proud of, being a devotee and being in such a, like for us, it's actually humility, but, can also be proud that somehow or other we were allowed to be in such a disciplic succession with all these great devotees. What would you say about that? Because usually pride is condemned. It's a quality of the demons. But here there's different kinds of pride. No comment?
Yeah, Maharaj, the explanation is clear.
All right. Anyway, it's something to think about. But don't get puffed up in false pride, thinking I'm so beautiful, or I'm rich, or I'm Igbo, or I'm this tribe or that tribe, which is better than the other tribe. That's not proper. But to give credit that whatever we've accomplished is because of our being in such a disciplic succession. That's all right. Okay. Think
But
about
Maharaj,
it.
how do we compare this with the gopis feeling I'm the only one dancing with Krishna? Krishna still left them because they were thinking that way. They were thinking I'm with
Yeah.
Krishna. Krishna's for me alone.
They were thinking I'm very special. They weren't thinking that the others were special. They were thinking I must be something better than the others. So Krishna's just with me. Something like that. Also, that's Leela, the Gopi thing, and that Krishna wanted to increase their feelings of separation and make and demonstrate their madness to try to find them and all that. Okay.
Okay,
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna Maharaj.
Very hard to compare the gopis to anything else. They're in a whole nother world,
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Maharaj Parishit also gave credit. He didn't give it to himself, but his forefathers for being so fortunate that for the sages to come at the time of his death. He didn't give credit to himself, he was crediting his forefathers.
Right. And he's proud of them actually. And so that's, if anybody's glorifying him, it's because of them. That's a different kind of pride. So we have to realize that too, that you might do something wonderful. You might open a temple, or you might make so many devotees, or you might distribute so many books, or whatever, collect so much money, or anything. But if we think I am great, there's nothing like me, then that's no good. But if we think this is all the mercy of the disciplic succession, and they're also wonderful. So I'm very fortunate of, it's a different kind of pride. It's not false ego pride. Subtle thing. Like in America, they have the Marine Corps, the military, and they'll be proud to be a Marine, because the Marines are great. Not thinking I'm great, but I'm proud to be part of it because they're great. So we're proud to be, in such a disciplic succession, in such a society where there's actually so many great devotees even now. We should be always recognizing that. All right, let's carry on because this is very important. The Bhagavatam is something, at least for me, like somebody asked me once, what's your favorite part of the Bhagavatam? And I thought a minute and I said, well, wherever I'm reading it, it becomes my favorite part because it's also great. So it's very hard to pin down, but here is a lot of nectar here. And like I said yesterday, Prabhupada, he put so much energy into this first canto because he had no idea how much, he was going to be able to do. All right, next.
Text number 14. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of both the transcendental and mundane worlds, has graciously overtaken me in the form of a Brahmana's curse. Due to my being too much attached to family life, the Lord, in order to save me, has appeared before me in such a way that only out of fear I will detach myself from the world. Purport. Maharaj Parikshit, although born in a family of great devotees, the Pandavas, and although securely trained in transcendental attachment for the association of the Lord, still found the allurement of mundane family life so strong that he had to be detached by a plan of the Lord. Such direct action is taken by the Lord in the case of a special devotee. Maharaj Parikshit could understand this by the presence of the topmost transcendentalist in the universe. The Lord resides with his devotees, and therefore the presence of the great saints indicated the presence of the Lord. The king therefore welcomed the presence of the great rishis as a mark of favor of the Supreme Lord. Text number 15.
Now that you see how humble he is.
Yeah.
That in first place, when he sees death coming, Bhakti Tirtha said, when trouble's coming, you should be very happy and say, oh, here comes Krishna. And Prabhupada said, when they were bombing Calcutta, he said, I saw Krishna, the universal form. So that's something we should be striving for. So he's saying this curse of the Brahmin, he didn't blame the Brahmin. He said, it's Krishna just, freeing me from my material attachment. So all the things that go wrong in our life, sometimes that could be one of the reasons. Krishna's trying to break our attachments. All right.
Yeah. It's difficult, though.
Yeah, it's very advanced. Parikshit is a, devotee from the womb. His whole life, as a child, he didn't do any ordinary things. He just played with Krishna dolls. And then even when he was the emperor, he was going to Vrindavan all the time and, installing deities and mapping out the parikrama and, he wasn't an ordinary king, just trying to enjoy the opulence of being a king or the family even. But still he's thinking, I'm too much attached. All right, next one.
Okay, the next one is
It's a nice prayer. This one.
Oh, Brahmanas, just accept me as a completely surrendered soul. and let Mother Ganges, the representatives of the Lord, also accept me in that way. For I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bed, or whatever magical thing the Brahmanas created, bite me at once. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu. Purport. As soon as one is given up completely unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, he is not at all afraid of death. The atmosphere created by the presence of great devotees of the Lord on the bank of Ganges and Maharaj Parikshit's complete acceptance of the Lord's lotus feet were sufficient guarantee to the king for going back to Godhead. He thus became absolutely free from all fear of death. Go ahead, text number 16. Again, offering obeisances unto all you Brahmanas. I pray that if I should again take my birth in the material world, I will have complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna, association with his devotees, and friendly relations with all living beings. Purport of PowerPoint. That a devotee of the Lord is the only perfect living being is explained herein by Maharaj Parikshit. A devotee of the Lord is no one's enemy. Although there may be many enemies of a devotee of the Lord does not like to associate with non-devotees. Although he has no enmity with them, he desires association with the devotees of the Lord. This is perfectly natural, because birds of the same feather mix together. And the most important function of a devotee is to have complete attachment for Lord Sri Krishna, the Father of all living beings. As a good son of the Father behaves in a friendly way with all his other brothers, so also the devotees of the Lord, being a good son of the Supreme Father, Lord Krishna, sees all other living beings in relation with the Supreme Father. He tries to bring back the upstart sons of the Father to his saner state and to get them to accept the Supreme Fatherhood of God. Maharaj Parikshit was certainly going back to God, but even if he were not to go back, he prayed for a pattern of life, which is the most perfect way in the material world. A pure devotee does not desire the company of a personality as great as Brahma, but he prefers the association of a petty living being, provided he is a devotee of the Lord.
All right, now there's another interesting thing there.
Yes, Maharaj.
Maharaj Yudhishthira was called a Jata Shatru. He has no enemies. So that can be confusing because we know that Duryodhana hated him and dedicated his life to making trouble for him. So how can you say he didn't have any enemies? That's explained here. So can you repeat it?
Okay.
Do you understand? Can you say what, how to understand that? It's stated right there in the purport.
Yes, Maharaj. In the way Prabhupada explained it, just a devotee does not take offense, even though others might consider him an enemy or act inimical towards him. A devotee does not take offense or see others as being enemy, even though those persons might be inimical.
Okay, difficult, right? It's another difficult thing to accomplish.
I was just reflecting recent happenings in my life in a recent time while I was reading this, because it's very difficult when you have non-devotees do something. It's easy to to give up. But when a supposedly devotee or someone who is also chanting Hare Krishna does some things to you, which are not in line with the standard of a devotee life, it becomes very difficult to bear.
Yeah. You know, even amongst devotees, sometimes we think this devotee is my enemy, you know, he took my service or this and that. And so I'll have to revenge and but the Yudhisthira Pariksit, they had none of that revenge type. They just only acted according to Dharma, not any personal sentiment, emotional thing, you know. And trying to punish the person who hurt us, you know, then we never forget. Better to forgive it and get on with our life. Otherwise, Bhakti Tirtha gave example, and I think that's from Buddha, you know. It's like I'm angry at you, so I pick up a bunch of hot coals in my hand to put on your head to punish you, but then in my hand, all I get is burnt hands. It's like drinking poison and thinking the other person will suffer. All right, very good. Next, this is full of lessons. All these are really powerful. Because we all have to face death. You know, actually we're facing death at every moment. And we just don't think about it. Okay.
Yes, my lord. Text number 17.
Sorry, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah, somebody
It's,
read.
sorry to take those back. The last text that we read, the association with the devotees and friendly relations with all living beings. As devotees, some of us have the tendency to be nice to devotees and dislike or hate even other living beings. Because you could not see that all men are brothers, as we are all in relation with the Supreme Lord.
All right. Anyway, Sadhu Sangha, we want.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments there. I really appreciate friendly relation with all living beings.
Yeah, that's the goal. And that, you know, the way to accomplish that is by preaching, going out, you know. So Lord Chaitanya stressed that, Prabhupada stressed it, you know, get out. Go out and meet people and try to give them the holy name. And that's how we can gradually develop, you know, be friendly to all living entities. Because if we're trying to attract people, we have to be nice to them, right?
Maybe that's why they say this star doesn't have enemy.
And sometimes devotees will be very good preachers when they go out amongst the non-devotees and be so humble and polite and nice. But then when we get with devotees, we get angry really easy and, you know, frustrated, criticize them. But charity begins at home, you know, so the more we are, even marriage, I heard one guy speaking, he said, you know, romance doesn't last very long, you know, the pleasure of the romance, the sex, you know, it doesn't last very long. Unless there's friendship, the marriage is not going to last. And, you know, the Christians in America, they analyze everything and they have so many statistics and they say people will come to a religion, join the church for many different reasons, you know, just like Krishna says, Chatur Vidavit, you know, but they stay because they make friends. If they don't make friends with anybody in the church, they're not going to stay. So I see some churches in Nigeria, they have their advertisement, and the Mormons stress on this, you know. We have family. We have a wonderful families. We are a big family. You know, we're all friends. We all love each other. And people want that, that's what, and the more we have that, community building, Bhakti Tirtha stressed so much on that. But it means friendly. Devotee is the best friend of everyone. Krishna is the best friend. The devotee represents Krishna. Okay? Thank
Okay,
you.
Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
This is number 17, right?
Yes, 17, Maharaj.
Okay. In perfect self-control, Maharaj Pariksit sat down on the seat of straw placed on the southern bank of the Ganges, with the straw roots pointing east, and he himself faced the north. Just previously, he had given charge of his kingdom over to his son. So that is all scientific, that you put the roots, when you have a kusa grass mat, you're supposed to have the roots also. And then it faces toward the east, but you face north. And for the Brahmins, it's like every minute of the day when you wake up, you first you look in this direction, and then when you pass stool and urine, you look in another direction, and when you're eating, you look in a certain direction. So many rules like that to keep them in line. For Vaishnava, all those details are not so important, but we have, because we want to do whatever makes us remember Krishna. The river Ganges is celebrated as the wife of the sea. The seat of kusa grass is considered to be sanctified if the straw is taken out of the earth, complete with the roots. And pointing the roots toward the east is considered to be auspicious. Facing the north is still more favorable for attaining spiritual success. Pariksit Maharaj handed over the charge of the administration to his son before leaving home. He was thus fully equipped for all favorable conditions. Even though his son was very young, the ministers were actually running things until the son got old enough. But he just gave it up. Thus the king sat to fast until death. All the demigods in the higher planets praised the king's action, and in pleasure continually scattered flowers over the earth and beat celestial drums. Purport. Even up to the time of Maharaj Pariksit, there were interplanetary communications, and news of Parikit's fasting unto death to attain salvation reached the higher planets in the sky where the intelligent demigods live. The demigods are more luxurious than human beings, but all of them are obedient to the orders of the Supreme Lord. That's why they're called Sura. There is no one in the heavenly planets who is an atheist or non-believer. Thus, any devotee of the Lord on the surface of the earth is always praised by them. And in the case of Maharaj Pariksit, they were greatly delighted and thus gave tokens of honor by scattering flowers over the earth and beating celestial drums. The demigods take pleasure in seeing someone go back to Godhead. They're always pleased with the devotee of the Lord, so much so that by their adi-daivic powers, they can help the devotee in all respects. And by their actions, the Lord is pleased with them. There is an invisible chain of complete cooperation between the Lord, the demigods, and the devotees on the earth. I was going to say earlier that, all these sages from all over the universe, they came to, to witness, because to see a great devotee leave his body and go back to Godhead is very auspicious. But also somehow they knew that Sukadeva was going to speak the Bhagavatam, and they didn't have internet, but the communication was much, much better. And travel was much better. They didn't have to, spend millions of dollars to build a spaceship that, might not work. They could just go, by thinking. Now a lot of people are advertising you can manifest anything you want, but I don't think the ordinary person can do that, but the yogis can do that, the advanced, the demigods. Vishwakarma doesn't have to take out a hammer and nails to build a, palace. He just does it by thinking. So that is possible, but one has to perform a lot of tapasya Kapila Muni, Kardama Muni manifested his aerial mansion that could fly all over the universe just by thinking about it. Okay, next, who will read next?
Yadinath,
Yeah,
Kamalacha Prabhu, any of you can read? Kamalacha
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Techno
Please
Spark,
play.
Hare Krishna.
Techno Spark 8. You can go ahead.
What should I do? What should I do?
Read
Read.
the next verse, text 19. First
19.
Canto, chapter 19, text number 19. That's where we are.
Okay. It's not on the screen. My book is not. My
Okay.
iPad is not.
Okay,
I will put
Chetan.
my iPad. I will read the next two. Yes,
Okay.
the next verse.
Okay, it's on the screen now. You can read. Okay, Chetan Prema.
All the great sages who were assembled there also praised the decision of Maharaj Parishit. And they expressed their approval by saying, very good. Naturally, disinclined to do all qualitative hours of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they were very much pleased to see Maharaj Parishit, a devotee of the Lord, and they spoke as follows.
Purport.
The purport. The natural beauty of a living being is enhanced by rising up to the platform of devotional service. Maharaj Parikshit was absorbed in attachment for Lord Krishna. Seeing this, the great sages, yes, the great sages assembled were very pleased, and they expressed their approval by saying, very good. Such sages are naturally inclined to do good to the common man. And when they see a personality like Maharaj Parishit advance in devotional service, their pleasure knows no bounds, and they offer all blessings and power. The devotional service of the Lord is so auspicious that all demigods and sages, up to the Lord himself, became pleased with the devotee. And therefore, the devotee finds everything auspicious. All inauspicious matters are removed from the path of a progressive devotee. Meeting all the great sages at the time of death was certainly auspicious for Maharaj Parishit, and thus was blessed by the so-called cause of the Brahmanas boy.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, that's very simple and clear. So we see how with Prabhupada, Krishna did, the material energy just kept arranging things for him. But the whole movement, somehow grew with all these devotees who had no experience in many things, and they did things that they never had, because Krishna just somehow made arrangements or sent the right people to help. And you have to have faith and depend on, when we totally depend on Krishna, then he'll do everything for us. So Maharaj Parikshit felt blessed by the curse. That's interesting. Lord Chaitanya, one guy cursed him once. He got mad at him and he said, you'll never have any material enjoyment. You're going to never enjoy the material world or any sense gratification. Lord Chaitanya said, thank you very much. And then some other guy blessed him that he would have all kinds of material pleasure. And he said, no, 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 no. Why are you doing that? Why don't you bless me with bhakti? And the crazy guy said, no, you don't need bhaktis when you get older. Now you have to enjoy. See, this is an illusion that we fall into. That before we can surrender to Krishna, we have to have all material enjoyment. We've had it all over and over again in so many lives that we forget. Okay, next.
Yeah.
I have to step out for a moment, but keep reading.
Okay. Kamalachi Prabhu, do you want to read? Kamalachi Prabhu? Okay, I'll read text number 20. It's a long purport. The sages said, O chief of all the saintly kings of the Pandu dynasty, who are strictly in the line of Lord Sri Krishna, it is not at all astonishing that you give up your throne, which is decorated with the elements of many kings, to achieve eternal association with the personality of Godhead. Purport. Foolish politicians who hold political administrative posts think that the temporary posts they occupy are the highest material gain of life. And therefore they stick to those posts even up to the last moment of life, without knowing that achievement of liberation as one of the association of the Lord in the eternal abode is the highest gain of life. The human life is meant for achieving this end. The Lord has assured us in the Bhagavad Gita many times that going back to Godhead is eternal abode.
Is the highest achievement. Prahlad Maharaj, while praying to Lord Nrsimhadev, he said, "Oh my Lord, I'm very much afraid of the materialistic way of life, and I'm not the least afraid of your present ghastly, ferocious feature as Narasimha Deva. This materialistic way of life is something like a grinding stone, and we're being crushed by it. We are falling into this horrible whirlpool of the tossing waves of life. And thus, my Lord, I pray at your lotus feet to call me back to your eternal abode as one of your servitors. This is the summit liberation of this materialistic way of life. I have very bitter experience of the materialistic way of life. In whatever way species of life I have taken birth, compelled by the force of my own activities, I have very painfully experienced two things, namely separation from my beloved and meeting with what is not wanted. And to counteract them, the remedies which I have undertook were more dangerous than the disease itself. So I drift from one point to another birth after birth. And I pray to you, therefore, to give me a shelter at your lotus feet. The Pandava kings, who are more than many saints of the world, knew the bitter results of the materialistic way of life. They were never captivated by the glare of the imperial throne they occupied. And they sought always the opportunity of being called by the Lord to associate with him eternally. Maharaj Parikshit was the worthy grandson of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira gave up the imperial throne to his grandson. Similarly, Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of Maharaj Yudhishthira, gave up the imperial throne to his son, Janamejaya. That is the way of all the kings in the dynasty, because they are all strictly in the line of Lord Krishna. Thus, the devotee of the Lord are never enchanted by the glare of materialistic life, and they live impartially, unattached, to the object of the false, illusory, materialistic way of life. Text number 21.
Rotate the reading, you know.
Okay.
So that the Yudhisthira also, all the Pandavas, as soon as they knew that Krishna had left the planet, they just gave up being kings. They had no use to live without Krishna. Prahlad is praying the same way.
Yadnath Prabhu, are you there? Can you read the next verse? Text number 21. Yadnath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Please display it.
Your voice is not clear. I think network challenge. The next verse is text number 21 is on the screen. Okay.
We shall wait here until the foremost devotee of the Lord, Maharaj Parikshit, returns to the supreme planet, which is completely free from
I'm not seeing on my screen.
all kinds of lamentation. Now someone else read.
Tamara Krishna Prabhu, can you read?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, go ahead,
The
Prabhuji.
purport, eh?
Yes. Purport.
Okay. Beyond the imitation of the material creation, which is compared to the cloud in the sky, there is a Prabhayuma, or the sky, the spiritual sky, full of planets called Vyakuntas. Such Vyakunta planets are also differently known as the Purushatama Loka, Achuta Loka, Trivikrama Loka, Risikesa Loka, Keshava Loka, Niruda Loka, Madhava Loka, Praduma Loka, Sankasana Loka, Sridhara Loka, Vasudeva Loka, Ayuda Loka, Dwara Loka, and many other millions of spiritual lokas within the personality of Godhead predominates. All the living entities there are liberated souls with spiritual bodies as good as that of the Lord. There is no material contamination. Everything there is spiritual, and everything there is nothing adjectively lamentable. They are full of transcendental bliss, and they are without birth, death, old age, and disease. And amongst all the above mentioned Vyakunta lokas, there is one supreme loka called Goloka Vrindavana, which is abode of the Lord Shri Krishna and his specific associate. Maharaj Parikshit was destined to achieve these particular lokas, and the great rishis particular loka, and the great rishis assembled there could foresee this. All of them consulted among themselves about the great departure of the great king, and they wanted to see him up to the last moment because they would no more be able to see such a great devotees of the Lord. When the great devotees of the Lord pass away, there is nothing to lament because the devotees is destined to enter into the kingdom of God. But the sorry plain is that such great devotees leaves our side, and therefore there is very reason to be sorry. As the Lord is really to be seen by our present eyes, so also the great devotees, the great rishis, therefore, currently decided to remain on the spot till the last moment. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes. 22. Yes.
Jai Prabhu.
All right. All that was spoken by the great sages was very sweet to hear, full of meaning, and appreciately presented as perfectly truth. So after hearing them, Maharaj Parisi desired to hear of the activities of the Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, congratulated the great sages. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
23. The king said, yes, the king said, "O great sages, you have all very kindly assembled here, having come from all parts of the universe. You are all as good as supreme knowledge personified, who reside in the planet about the three-world Satya Loka. Consequently, you are naturally inclined to do good to others. But for this, you have no interest, either in this life or in the next." Purport. 6 kinds of opulence, namely wealthy strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, are all originally the different attributes pertaining to the absolute personality of Godhead, the living being, who are part and parcel entities of the Supreme Being, have all those attributes partially. Up to the full strength of 78% in the material world, those attributes up to 78% of the Lord attributes are covered by the material energy. As the sun is covered by a cloud, the covering strength of the sun is very dim compared to the original grounds. And similarly, the originally color of the living being with such attributes become almost extinct. There are 3 planetary systems, namely the lower world, the intermediate world, and the upper world. The human beings on the earth are situated at the beginning of the intermediate world. But living beings like Brahma and his contemporaries live in the upper world, of which the topmost is Satya Loka. In Satya Loka, the inhabitants are fully cognizant and Vedic wisdom, and now the mystic cloud of material energy is cleared. Therefore, they are known as the Vedas personified. Such persons, being full aware of knowledge, both mundane and transcendental, have no interest in either the mundane or transcendental world. They are practically desireless devotees. In the mundane world, they have nothing to achieve. And in the transcendental world, they are full in themselves. Then, why do they come to the mundane world? That's the question. They descend on different planets as messiahs, by the order of the Lord to deliver the fallen souls. On the earth, they come down and to do good to the people of the world in different circumstances, under different calamities, influences. They have nothing to do in this world, save and expect reclaim the foreign souls rotten in material existence, deluded by material energies. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, want to say something?
If there's any question, it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
That's what, and similar devotees, you know, we are in the temple, it may be nice, comfortable in our house, you know, but we go out into the world where it's not so nice to preach, but then Krishna goes with us, and then the crazy material world with a bus stop or wherever we are becomes nice because Krishna is with us. If we just stay home, you know, we won't feel the same pleasure because we're not doing what we're supposed to do. Of course, if you stay home and you're going online and you're doing some kind of preaching and creating communities there, that's also very good. That nowadays we can do that. But somehow or other we have to, you know, like the Christians have a saying, unchurched. You ever heard that one? People that don't go to church, they ask the, you know, the real preaching ones, how many unchurched people did you talk to today? Every day we should think like that. How many people did I inform about Krishna that never heard of Krishna before? How many people saw me with tilak and so they would think of Krishna? This is the way to go. Okay? Hare Krishna. Wherever you go and whoever you meet, tell them about Krishna. Text number 24 is next.
Yes, Maharaj. Wants to read next? Kamalacha Prabhu has not read.
Okay.
Kamalacha Prabhu there? Okay, I read, Maharaj.
All right. I think their network is worrying them.
Yeah. Okay, Madhvan Prabhu, you can read. Madhvan Prabhu. Okay, I'll read. O trustworthy Brahmana, I now ask you about my immediate duty. Please, after proper deliberation, tell me of the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances, and specifically of those who are just about to die. Purport. In this verse, the king has placed two questions before the learned sages. The first question is, what is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? And the second question is, what is the specific duty of one who is to die very shortly? Out of the two, the question relating to the dying man is most important because everyone is a dying man, either very shortly or after 100 years. The duration of life is immaterial, but the duty of a dying man is very important. Maharaj Parishit placed these two questions before Sukadev Goswami and also on his arrival, and practically the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning from the second canto up to the 12th canto, deals with these two questions. The conclusion arrived at therefore is that devotional service of the Lord to Sri Krishna, as it is confirmed by the Lord himself in the last phases of the Bhagavad Gita, is the last word in relation to everyone's permanent duty in life. Maharaj Parikshit was already aware of this fact, but he wanted the great sages assembled there to unanimously give their verdict on his conviction so that he might be able to go on with his confirmed duty without controversy. He has especially mentioned the word Suddha, or perfectly correct, for transcendental realization or self-realization. Many processes are recommended by various classes of philosophers. Some of them are first-class methods, and some of them are second-class or third-class methods. The first-class method demands that one give up all other methods and surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus be saved from all sins and their reactions.
So everyone is a dying man. I remember when I first was preaching and going out in Sankirtan, and most of the devotees, that idea to suddenly be aware that we were going to die and that there was something we could do about it, the devotees would say that all the time. Well, we're all going to die, and people would say, you Hare Krishnas are so pessimistic. Why do you want to talk about that? Come on, enjoy life, But actually it was not pessimistic. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to die. Oh, this is horrible. What's going to happen to my family and what's going to happen and where am I, I haven't enjoyed enough. And we're thinking, wow, we have this chance to prepare for death. So please take it. Right?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah. So don't forget. And I know Bhakti Church and Community Building said, think about the people you're with. They might be the people that are with you when you're dying. And also, they might, whoever devotees we're dealing with, they may be leaving their body very soon. We don't know. And then, if we had a bad relationship with them just before they died or something. And so, always be trying to help everybody to think of Krishna. Because life is just a journey and then everybody ends up in the same place, right? One time here, I was, a long time ago, I was visiting the New York temple. And there was a one boy there. He was a rap singer. So he wanted to play his song for me that he made. And it was called Ticket to the Graveyard.
Mm.
And it would say, he was, because he had, I guess, read, he knew the books. So he was describing, trying to enjoy this and that. I don't remember the details, but, the punchline was ticket to the graveyard, ticket to the grave. Whatever we're trying to do to enjoy life, to get goods, and have, material success, it's just a ticket to the graveyard, So that's where everybody ends up, or to the funeral pyre. Okay, next.
At that moment, there appeared the powerful son of Vyasadeva, who traveled over the earth disinterested and satisfied with himself. He did not manifest any symptoms of belonging to any social order or status of life. He was surrounded with women and children, and he dressed as if others had neglected him. Purport. The word Bhagavan is sometimes used in relation with some of the great devotees of the Lord, like Sukadeva Goswami. Such liberated souls are disinterested in the affairs of this material world because they are self-satisfied by the great achievements of devotional service. As explained before, Sukadeva Goswami never accepted any formal spiritual master, nor did he undergo any formal reformatory performances. His father, Vyasadeva, was his natural spiritual master because Sukadeva Goswami had shown Bhagavatam from him. After this, he became completely self-satisfied. Thus, he was not dependent on any formal process. The formal process are necessary for those who are expected to reach the stage of complete liberation. But Sri Sukadeva Goswami was already in that status by the grace of his father. As a young boy, he was expected to be properly dressed, but he went about naked and was uninterested in social customs. He was neglected by the general populace, and inquisitive boys and women surrounded him as if he were a madman. He thus appeared on the scene while traveling on the earth of his own accord. It appears that upon the inquiry of Maharaj Parikshit, the great sage were not unanimous in their decision as to what was to be done. For spiritual salvation, there were many prescriptions according to the different modes of different persons. But the ultimate aim of life is to attain the highest perfectional stage of devotion, service to the Lord. As doctors differ, so also sages differ in their different prescriptions. While such things were going on, the great and powerful son of Vyasadeva appeared on the scene.
Okay.
Text number 28.
Yeah, within that, Varnashram and there's so many other things, but the goal has to be Krishna. Varnashram is actually meant to whatever anybody's doing, it's heading towards Krishna. Okay, next.
The son of Vyasadeva was only 16 years old. His legs, hands, thighs, arms, shoulders, forehead, and the other part of his body were all delicately formed. His eyes were beautifully wide, and his nose and ears were highly raised. He had a very attractive face, and his neck was well formed and beautiful like a conch shell. Purport. A respectable personality is described in beginning with the legs, and his honored system is, and this honored system is observed here with Sukadev Goswami. He was only 16 years of age. A person is honored for his achievement and not for advanced age. A person can be older by experience and not by age. Sri Sukadev Goswami, who is described herein as the son of yesterday, was by his knowledge more experienced than all the sages present there, although he was only 16 years old. Text number 20. Can somebody else read? Tamara Krishna Prabhu, can you read? For a change. We're on text number 27.
Yes, the network is not all that good. Let me try. When it cuts, then yes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
His caliber was freshly, his chest broad and thick, his navel deep, and his abdomen beautiful slippered. His arms were long, and curled hair was spread over his beautiful face. He was naked, and the hue of his body reflected that of Lord Krishna. Purport. His body feature indicates to be differently from common men. All the signs described in the connection with the body featuring of Sukadev Goswami are uncommon symptoms, typical of great personality, according to the physiognomical calculations. His body hue resembled that of Lord Krishna, who is supreme among the gods.
Demigods and
Demigods and all
We read about
Babu,
these.
my network is jamming.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
my network is jamming. Yes.
The sages could recognize him, even though ordinary people thought he just like a crazy person. They could see by the structure of his body that he was some kind of great super exalted soul. Not just, like a movie star or something. Different type of beauty. 29. He was blackish and very beautiful due to his youth. Because of the glamour of his body and his attractive smiles, he was pleasing to women. Though he tried to cover his natural glories, the great sages present there were all expert in the art of physiognomy. So they honored him by raising from, everybody stood up when he came. Maharaj Parikshit, who was also known as Vishnu Rata, one who was always protected by Vishnu, bowed his head to receive the chief guest, Sukadeva Goswami. At that time, all the ignorant women and boys ceased following Srila Sukadeva. Receiving respect from all, Sukadeva took his exalted seat. Someone read the purport.
On Sukadeva Goswami's arrival at the meeting, everyone except Srila Vyasadeva, Narada, and a few others stood up. And Maharaj Parikshit, who was glad to receive a great devotee of the Lord, bowed down before him with all the limbs of his body. Sukadeva Goswami also exchanged the greetings and reception by embrace, shaking of hands, nodding, and bowing down, especially before his father, Narad Muni. Thus, he was offered the presidential seat at the meeting. When he was so received by the great kings and sages, the street boys and less intelligent women who followed him very sorry, I take that again. The street boys and less intelligent women who followed him were struck with wonder and fear. So they retired from their frivolous activities, and everything was full of gravity and calm. Text number 30. Sukadeva Goswami was then surrounded by saintly sages and demigods, just as the moon is surrounded by stars, planets, and other heavenly bodies. His presence was gorgeous, and he was respected by all. In the great assembly of saintly personalities, there was Vyasadeva, the Brahma Rishi, Narada, the Deva Rishi, Parashuram, the great ruler of the Kshatriya kings, etc. Some of them were powerful incarnations of the Lord. Sukadeva Goswami was not known as Brahma Rishi, Raja Rishi, or Deva Rishi, nor was he an incarnation like Narada, Vyasa, or Parashuram, and yet he exalted them in respect paid. This means that the devotee of the Lord is more honored in the world than the Lord himself. One should therefore never minimize the importance of a devotee like Sukadeva Goswami.
Yeah.
That's,
You notice it says how, he greeted different people in different ways. Right? He bowed down, he shook hands, he embraced, depending on, the position. So even Vyasadeva and Narada, they didn't stand up when he came because they're his spiritual masters. But everyone else, even though they're, Parashuram and such great people, they bowed down and then they greeted him in different ways. So don't underestimate a devotee. any devotee, we never know who they are. Okay, next.
Okay, I've still read. The sage Sri Sukadev Goswami sat perfectly pacified, intelligent, and ready to answer any questions without hesitation. The great devotee, Maharaj Parikshit, approached him, offered his respects by bowing before him, and politely inquired with sweet words and folded hands. Purport. The gesture now adopted by Maharaj Parikshit of questioning a master is quite befitting in terms of scriptural injunctions. The scriptural injunction is that one should humbly approach his spiritual master to understand the transcendental science. Maharaj Parikshit was now prepared for meeting his death. And within the very short time of 7 days, he was to know the process of entering the kingdom of God. In such important cases, one is required to approach his spiritual master. In such important cases, one is required to approach his spiritual master. There is no necessity of approaching his spiritual master unless one is in need of solving the problem of life. One who does not know how to put questions before the spiritual master has no business seeing him. And the qualification of the spiritual master is perfectly manifested in the person of Sukadev Goswami. Both the spiritual master and disciple, namely Sri Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit, attained perfection through the medium of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sukadev Goswami learned Srimad Bhagavatam from his father, Vyasadeva, but he had no chance to recite it. Before Maharaj Parikshit, he recited Srimad Bhagavatam and answered the questions of Maharaj Parikshit unhesitatingly. And thus, both the master and the disciple got salvation. Text number 32. The fortunate king Parikshit said, O Brahmana, by your mercy only you have sanctified us, making us like unto places of pilgrimage, all by your presence here as my guest. By your mercy, we, who are but unworthy royals, become eligible to serve the devotees. Purport. Saintly devotees like Sukadev Goswami generally do not approach worldly enjoyers, especially those royal orders. Maharaj Pradrudra was the follower of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But when he wanted to see the Lord refused to see him because he was a king. For a devotee who desires to go back to God, two things are strictly prohibited: worldly enjoyers and women. Therefore, devotees of this standard of Sukadev Goswami are never interested in seeing kings. Maharaj Parikshit was, of course, a different case. He was a devotee. Although a king, and therefore Sukadev Goswami came to see him in his last stage of life. Maharaj Parikshit, out of his devotional humility, felt himself an unworthy descendant of his great Kshatriya forefathers. Although he was as great as his predecessors, the unworthy sons of the royal order are called Kshatriya Bandhavas, as the unworthy sons of the Brahmanas are called Dvija Bandhus or Brahma Bandhus. Maharaj Parikshit was greatly encouraged by the presence of Sukadev Goswami. Sanctified.
By the presence of the great saint whose presence turns any place into a place of pilgrimage. So that's it.
Thank you, Maharaj.
That's what Yudhishthira said to Vidura when he came. Wherever you are, that's a place of pilgrimage because you carry Krishna in your heart. So when devotees go out and preach, they're also, the place, wherever you are, becomes a place of pilgrimage. If you're out preaching, we're trying to give people books, you're carrying the books, you're carrying Krishna in your hand. And purifying wherever we go. And we're chanting the holy name. Krishna is present. And Lord Chaitanya and all his associates. And if you have a really good kirtan, they all come. Okay. Simply by remembering you, our houses become instantly sanctified. What to speak of seeing you, touching you, washing your holy feet, and offering you a seat in our home. Something else purport.
The importance of holy places of pilgrimage is due to the presence of great sages and saints. It is said that sinful persons go to the holy places and leave their sins there to accumulate. But the presence of the great saints disinfects the accumulated sins. And thus, the holy places continue to remain sanctified by the grace of the devotees and saints present there. If such saints appear in the home of worldly people, certainly the accumulated sins of such worldly enjoyers become neutralized. Therefore, the holy saints actually have no self-interest with the householders. The only aim of such saints is to sanctify the houses of the householders, and the householders therefore should feel grateful when such saints and sages appear at their doors. A householder who dishonors such holy orders is a great offender. It is enjoined, therefore, that a householder who does not bow down before a saint at once must undergo fasting for a day in order to neutralize the great offense. Text number 34.
If we remember that when we go out, that we're doing this for the benefit of the people. And sometimes we think, well, we need money or we want to get some, credit for ourselves, but then we don't become happy even if we do get some results. But if we're really dedicated that, this is Krishna's mission, he's given it to me, and I'm just going out to share it with everybody and help the world, and we'll be very, very happy whether anybody takes it or not. But Krishna will send nice people. That's my experience. Remember that. We're representing Krishna. We're giving the topmost thing to people for their benefit. And if they give a donation, it's more for their benefit. They have to give up something when they give a donation. You have to think favorably about devotees, That's good for them. All right. And if a devotee comes to visit you, be thankful, Krishna's blessing your house, even though you're a devotee also. Okay, next.
Text number 34, sorry. Just as the atheist cannot remain in the presence of the personality of Godhead, so also the invulnerable sins of a man are immediately vanquished in your presence, O saints, O great mystics. There are two classes of human beings, namely the atheists and the devotees of the Lord. The devotee of the Lord, because of manifesting godly qualities, is called a demigod, whereas the atheist is called a demon. The demons cannot stand the presence of Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. The demons are always busy in trying to vanquish the personality of Godhead. But factually, as soon as the personality of Godhead appears, by either his translated name, form, attribute, past tense, paraphernalia, or variegatedness, the demon is at once vanquished. It is said that a ghost cannot remain as soon as the holy name of the Lord is chanted. The great saints and devotees of the Lord are in the list of his paraphernalia, and thus as soon as a saintly devotee is present, the ghostly sins are at once vanquished. That is the verdict of all Vedic literatures. One is recommended, therefore, to associate only with saintly devotees, so that worldly demons and ghosts cannot exert their sinister influence.
Okay, that's valuable. So many people worried about ghosts and demons. but the holy name drives them away. All right. Thank
Yes,
you. Let's move on.
Text number 35. Lord Krishna, the personality of God, who is very dear to the sons of King Pandu, has accepted me as one of those relatives just to please his great cousin and brothers. A pure and exclusive devotee of the Lord serves his family interests more dexterously than others who are attached to illusory family affairs. Generally, people are attached to family matters, and the whole economic impetus of human society is moving under the influence of family affection. Such deluded persons have no information that one can render better service to the family by becoming a devotee of the Lord. The Lord gives special protection to the family members and descendants of a devotee, even though such members are themselves non-devotees. Maharaj Prahlad was a great devotee of the Lord, but his father Hiranyakasipu was a great atheist and declared an enemy of the Lord. But despite all this, Hiranyakasipu was awarded salvation due to his being the father of Maharaj Prahlad. The Lord is so kind that he gives all protection to the family members of his devotees, and thus the devotee has no need to bother about his family members, even if one leaves such family members aside to discharge devotional service. Maharaj Yudhishthira and his brothers were the sons of Kunti, the paternal aunt of Lord Krishna, and Maharaj Parishit admits the patronage of Lord Krishna because of his being the only grandson of the great Pandavas. Text number 36. Otherwise, without being inspired by Lord Krishna, how is it that you have voluntarily appeared here, though you are moving incognito to the common man and are not visible to us who are on the verge of death? Purport. The great sage Sukadev Goswami was certainly inspired by Lord Krishna to appear voluntarily before Maharaj Parikshit, the great devotee of the Lord, just to give him the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. One can achieve the nucleus of the devotional service of the Lord by the mercy of the spiritual master and the personality of Godhead. The spiritual master is the manifested representative of the Lord to help one achieve ultimate success. One who is not authorized by the Lord cannot become a spiritual master. Srila Sukadev Goswami is an authorized spiritual master, and thus he was inspired by the Lord to appear before Maharaj Parikshit and instruct him in the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. One can achieve the ultimate success of going back to God if he is favored by the Lord sending his true representatives. As soon as a representative of the Lord is met by a devotee of the Lord, the devotee is assured the guarantee of going back to God just after leaving the present body. This, however, depends on the sincerity of the devotee himself. The Lord is seated in the heart of all living beings, and thus he knows very well the movement of all individual persons. As soon as the Lord finds that a particular soul is very eager to go back to God, the Lord at once sends his bona fide representative. The sincere devotee is thus assured by the Lord of going back to God. The conclusion is that to get the assistance and help of a bona fide spiritual master means to receive the direct help of the Lord himself.
All right. So we're moving along. We almost finished this chapter, which is the whole first canto.
Okay.
So let's move fast to get these last 4 verses.
Okay.
5 verses.
Text 37. You are the spiritual master of great saints and devotees. I am therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons, and especially for one who is about to die. Purport. Unless one is perfectly anxious to inquire about the way of perfection, there is no necessity of approaching a spiritual master. A spiritual master is not a kind of decoration for a householder. Generally, a fashionable materialist engages a so-called spiritual master without any profit. The pseudo spiritual master flatters the so-called disciple, and thereby both the masters and his word go to hell, without a doubt. Maharaj Parikshit is the right type of a disciple because he puts forward questions vital to the interest of all men, particularly for the dying one. The question put forward by Maharaj Parikshit is the basic principle of the complete thesis of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now let us see how intelligently the great master replies. Text number 38. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain this.
These are good questions for us to think about when we pray, and if we're in a class or whatever, what should we hear and how should we chant? Although we know, but we need to hear it over and over again. And what you should not do. The Bhagavad Gita says that the demons, they don't know what to do and they don't know what not to do either. So they make a lot of trouble.
Text number 39. O powerful Brahmana, it is said that you hardly stay in the houses of men long enough to milk a cow. Purport. Saints and sages in the renounced order of life go to the houses of the householders at the time they milk the cows early in the morning and add some quantity of milk for subsistence. A pound of milk fresh from the milk bag of a cow is sufficient to feed an adult with all vitamin values, and therefore saints and sages live only on milk. Even the poorest of the householders keep at least 10 cows, each delivering 12 or 20 carts of milk, and therefore no one hesitates to spare a few pounds of milk for the mendicants. It is the duty of householders to maintain the saints and sages like the children. So a saint like Sukadev Goswami would hardly stay at the house of a householder for more than 5 minutes in the morning. In other words, such saints are very rarely seen in the houses of householders. And Maharaj Parikshit therefore prayed to him to instruct him as soon as possible. The householders also should be intelligent enough to get some transcendental information from visiting sages. The householder should not foolishly ask a saint to deliver what is available in the market. That should be the reciprocal relation between the saint and the householder. On text number 40, the last verse in the chapter. Says Sutta Goswami said, the king thus spoke and questioned the sage using the sweet language. Then the great and powerful personality, the son of Vyasadeva, who knew the principles of religion, began his reply. Thus ends the Bhakti purport of the first canto, 19th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Appearance of Sukadev Goswami. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
That's the end of the first canto.
Jai.
Yeah.
So we should try more, I think, to be like Maharaj Parikshit and like try to imitate Sukadev Goswami. But sometimes it'll be our duty to speak. And so devotee has to discriminate, If someone is innocent and they don't know anything, then it's our duty to teach them. If someone is more advanced and knows more, then it's our duty to inquire from them. We have to be able to judge, what kind of people. And if someone's an atheistic demon who hates Krishna, then we avoid them. So I said a few times, I don't know exactly what the tests are. Chaitanya didn't give me any, study guide or anything. but the Bhagavatam is meant, Jnana and Vijnana, it's meant to apply in our life. So we have to think, and this especially all this talk about cricket and how he ran the kingdom and punished the sinful and, even forgave the demon who begs for, shelter. There's all things we need to really know and apply in our life, personal life, that we're inquiring from Krishna, inquiring about Krishna, inquiring what to do with my life, because it's going to end any minute. It's very hard to face that, Even as devotees, when we know, when one of our members leaves his body, we always feel shocked and,
Yeah.
like, how could that happen? He was just here running around yesterday and now he's gone. But we hear about even young devotees, 20 years old, 30 years old, 5 years old, leaving their bodies. Going back to God yet. All right, so who wants to say something? We got 5 minutes, and then I have to go. And then I don't know if there's more coming up. I got to contact her. But this is the end of this Bhagavatam, the first canto you finished. So that's a very big accomplishment. The first and second canto are the lotus feet of the Lord, and we have to approach the Lord from the lotus feet. So in the first canto, you've met the Pandavas and you've met Sukadeva Goswami, Vyasadeva, so many great personalities, Krishna, Kunti, all Bhishma, it's a really amazing canto. Narada Muni is around all the time. That's the idea of it. We're reading to get the association of these great devotees. So who's Yadunath? You're very active now and running. Is he still there?
Yadunath is no longer here, Maharaj. We have only Tamala Krishna Prabhu, Jyoti Swarup, and Chaitanya Prema here.
Okay. Jyoti Swarup. Where are you from, Jyoti?
Originally from India, presently in Ghana.
Yeah, I thought so. He's Indian. Okay, good.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Welcome. Okay, so if you are satisfied for now, we can take a break. That's a pretty long session,
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
Hare Krishna.
check
So
with
devotees, please kindly let us all unmute and loudly chant Hare Krishna. So appreciate Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Rama Rama,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Vanchakarpataru Vyasya, Kripa Sindhya Sivasya, Patitanam Pavasnebhyo, Vaishnavyo, Namo Namo. Holiness Kavicandra Swami Maharaj ki
And inspired to help others to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. We have a lot of books there now in West Africa. More books are coming, many, many more books of all kinds. So we have to get out and share them.
Okay, Maharaj.
Dharma Samstapaka Lokanam Hitakarinam Tribhuvane Mannam Karana
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you very much. So we meet again next weekend by Krishna's grace, the same place, same time.